Hello everyone. In the last session, we have seen what is meant by the compiler and interpreter. Also, in that session, we have differentiated and discussed the functioning of compiler and interpreter. In today's session, we are going to discuss what are the advantages and disadvantages of both compilers and interpreters. Let us discuss the details. Before moving on to the advantages and disadvantages, better to clarify what is the difference between the compiled programming languages, interpreted programming languages, and finally hybrid programming languages. First, what is mean by this compiled languages or compiled programming languages? These are the languages which use the concept of the compiler for their translation. That's all. Now, interpreted programming languages or interpreted languages are nothing but they use the concept of interpreter for the translation. And hybrid programming languages which use the concept of both compiler and interpreter for their translation. Okay, how the hybrid programming languages are going to use the concept of compiler and interpreter, that we will see. That means these are going to use the approach called hybrid approach. We will discuss what is mean by the hybrid approach soon. Now, after that, we will see what are the examples for the compiled programming languages. Under this, mainly we have C and C++. These are the good examples for compiled programming languages. Why? Because they use only the compilers for converting the source code into the executable code. After that, coming to the interpreted programming languages, mainly we include JavaScript and PHP. PHP stands for Hypertext Preprocessor. Remember the abbreviation Hypertext Preprocessor. These are the good examples for interpreted programming languages. Why? Because they use interpreter. And finally, we are going to take the examples of hybrid programming languages. Under this, we have C Sharp, Java, and also we are going to include Python. Whenever we are trying to include Python, you might get some doubt. I will clarify the doubt. The doubt here is, I said in the introduction classes, Python is interpreted programming language. What I said, Python is interpreted programming language. But here I am including Python under hybrid programming language. Means that I want to say Python is both interpreted and second one is compiled. Means it is going to use the concept of hybrid approach. That we will see why I am including in the hybrid programming language. Finally, please remember Python is only the hybrid programming language. This is the final answer I want to say. Why? Because it is going to use both compiler concept and interpreter concept. I will clarify why it is known as hybrid programming languages soon. Now we will see the advantages of compiled programming languages. Let us discuss first advantages. The first advantage here is code privacy. Code privacy, or we can say private code. And second one we are talking about is faster execution. Faster execution. Now, what is mean by the code privacy? At the time of discussing compilers, I said that the compiler is going to take the source code and this source code is converted into executable code. Executable code. And anyone can execute this executable code. That means we are distributing the executable code to other users to execute on their machines. Maybe either Windows machine or Mac or any other Linux operating system. The executable code is distributed to the other users and other users can execute this executable code, but the source code we are not providing to the other users. The source code is kept as private. That is what I mean to say code privacy, or the code is private. Now, coming to the second advantage is faster execution. Why it is faster execution? I said that the compiler is going to convert the source code into executable code in one go. That means at a time, all the instructions are converted from the source code into executable code, and this executable code can be executed by any other machine with the help of, what do you say, operating system. That means the execution is very fast when you use the concept of compiler. Coming to disadvantages of compilers, the first one is no portability. There is no portability when you use the concept of compilers. And second one is extra step for compilation. Extra step for compilation. These are the important disadvantages of compilers. What do you mean by no portability? See, at the time of discussing compilers, I said that compilers will create executable code. Okay. And if you use Windows operating system for converting the source code into executable code, the executable code is going to contain the extension .exe. And this executable code can run on any machine. Assume that this is the first machine and this is the second machine and this is the third machine. As we discussed in the earlier classes, if the first machine is Windows machine, then this .exe executable file can be executed on the Windows machine. Here there is no problem. And assume that the second machine here we are using is Mac. See, the executable file is created at the source machine called Windows. So when it is created at the Windows operating system, Windows machine, this executable code can be executed on the remote system which uses the same operating system Windows. When you use same operating system, there is no problem. But here, if we want to execute the executable code in the Mac machine, this executable code cannot be executed. Why? The destination machine must use only the Windows operating system. If you use Mac or Linux operating system, this executable code cannot be run. Means it is not providing the portability. That means no portability. Now, the second disadvantage is extra step for compilation. What does it mean? Assume that we are converting the source code into executable code, right? And finally, this executable code can be executed at runtime. But here, assume that after creating the executable code, if there are any errors, then you can correct the errors. After correcting the error, again you have to compile. Means for every error or any mistake, we need an extra step for compilation. Every time, whenever there is an error, we have to compile it and then you have to provide the executable code. This is the drawback or extra step when you use the concept of compiler. These are the two disadvantages, no portability and extra step for the compilation. This is about the cons of compiled languages. Let us discuss the advantages of interpreted programming languages. The first advantage is portability. Portability, and second one is, here we have easy debugging. Easy debugging. These are the two advantages. So what do you mean by the portability? In the earlier classes, I said that assume that this is the machine called X. On this machine, we are writing the code. This is the source code. When you use the concept of interpreted languages, what happened? When these systems, other systems wants to execute this same source code, which is written at the X, here the source code is not converted into executable code. When the systems Y and Z wants to execute the source code written at X, then the copy of the source code from X is distributed to Y and Z. And the systems Y and Z can execute the source code which is written on X by using the interpreters which are installed at Y and Z. And assume that the Y is using the Windows operating system and Z is using the operating system Mac. Now, the source code which is written at X is sent to the Y as well as Z. Now already interpreter is installed at Y and interpreter is installed at Z, corresponding interpreters. Now the source code which is copied to Y is automatically executed on Windows operating system and also automatically executed on Mac operating system, directly executed on different machines even though they have different operating systems. Why? Because here we are not creating any executable code. Directly we are copying the source code from the source machine to other machines, and other machines have installed the corresponding interpreters, and with the help of those interpreters at runtime the source code is executed at Y and Z. This is what I mean to say portability. But when you use the concept of compiled programming languages, we are going to generate the source code into executable code, and executable code is specific to the machine. If it is Windows machine, it is going to create the .exe file for this executable code, and this executable code only executed by the machine which is having the only Windows operating system, which is similar to the source one. See, whenever we use the concept of compilers, if the source machine is using Windows operating system, the destination machine, or I can say other machines, should use the same type of operating system to execute that executable code. But here, this is not true. Why? Because when you use the concept of interpreter, interpreter converts line by line, but at runtime. Whereas compiler converts the whole program in one go into executable code before runtime. That is very, very important. That's why I can say that the interpreted languages provides portability. And another important thing is easy debugging. See, when you use compilers, the source code is converted into executable code in one go. And after conversion, all the errors are displayed at the bottom. It is very difficult to understand where or in which line the error has occurred. But when you use the concept of interpreter, at runtime, it converts the first line into the executable code the machine code. So whenever there is error in the first line, directly it displays at the error at the bottom of that line. Errors are displayed line by line when you use the concept of interpreted languages. So that's why debugging means finding the errors or finding the bugs is very easy when you use the concept of interpreters. After these advantages, next we are moving to the second one, disadvantages. We will see what are the disadvantages of interpreted languages. The first disadvantage here is the code privacy we are not maintaining. That means no code privacy. No code privacy means when you use interpreters, the source code we are distributing to other systems also. Means the code is here public code. There is no security for the code when you use the concept of interpreted languages. And second one is slower execution. Slower execution. Why slower? Why? Because the conversion, even though the conversion is at runtime, but line by line, it takes the first line and it converts into executable part and second line. That's why it is somewhat slower in execution. And third one is, so every mission requires interpreter. That is the main problem. But when you use the concept of compiled programming languages, other machines wants to execute the executable code without having their own compilers. But when you use interpreted languages, every other machine, whenever they want to execute the source code, they must install the corresponding the interpreter. That is very, very important. So these are the three disadvantages of interpreted languages. After this, we will see what is mean by the hybrid approach, what happened internally in the hybrid approach, that we will see. Now we will see what is mean by the hybrid approach in detail. See, hybrid approach, just now I said it uses the concept of compiler and second one is interpreter. Hybrid approach is going to take the advantages of compiled programming languages as well as advantages of interpreted programming languages. Now, the main advantages of compiled programming language is the source code is private. That means we don't want to send the source code to other machines. We want to keep the source code as private. When the code is public, then anybody can modify. That's the main problem with the interpreters. I'm taking the main advantage of compiled programming languages is The source code is private. This is the advantage I want to keep in. Next, I'm taking another advantages of what is the interpreter. What is the advantage of interpreter? The main advantage of interpreted programming language is portability. Portability. I want to have the portability. This has taken from interpreted programming languages or interpreter, and source code is kept private. This advantage I want to take from the compiled programming languages. That means by combining the advantages of compiled programming languages and interpreted programming languages, I'm going to create an approach called hybrid approach. So how this will happen? Let us take an example. Now, first I'm taking the source code. Assume that this is the source code. When you take Python as an example, any Python program must or Python file must have the extension .py. This is the source code which has the extension .py, and this source code is converted into an intermediate code. Here we are using compiler. We are using compiler, and this compiler converts the code into, but here very important thing, it is going to convert the source code into bytecode. Remember, this is not executable code. It is not executable code. It is the bytecode, means intermediate code. This is not machine code. See, similar to the compiled programming languages, by using here the compiler, we are converting the source code into the bytecode. The copy of the source code here is not distributed to other machine. First, we are converting into the bytecode. Now, this bytecode can be executed on any machine, on any other machine, by installing the corresponding interpreters there. This is the interpreter, and this is also we have having the interpreter. Here also we have interpreter. And assume that this is the Linux machine, and this is the Windows machine, and this is Mac machine. We have different operating systems. Though we have different operating systems, by installing the interpreters in corresponding machines, this bytecode can be executed. See, when you use this translation, here we are following the process of interpreter. When you use the translation from here to here, we are using the concept of compiler. By using these two approaches, we are keeping the source code as private. At the same time, the bytecode can be executed on different machines with different operating systems. This is the logic of using hybrid approach. So whenever we use hybrid approach, we can provide both privacy and also portability. So that's why we are preferring Python programming language. And finally, we said that Python is using hybrid approach, or I can say hybrid programming language. I have given an example called Java for hybrid programming language. Java uses both compiler as well as interpreter. I think we have used, if you know Java programming language, we use Java C and also Java interpreter. See, in Java, the source code .java, the source code of Java consists of the extension .java. This .java file is converted into bytecode by using the Java C compiler. This Java bytecode can be executed by JVM. What do we say? Java Virtual Machine. See, Java Virtual Machine bytecode can be executed by Java Virtual Machine. This Java Virtual Machine must be installed at other machines. See here, interpreter in Linux. How the interpreter in Linux works with the help of Java Virtual Machine. Here also we are using Java Virtual Machine. Java Virtual Machine. So interpreter comes with the package Java Virtual Machine. The Java virtual machine on various other machines can execute this bytecode so that we can provide portability. When you use the Python concept, instead of having Java virtual machine, we have PVM, that means Python virtual machine. It is a package which includes other stuff as well as the Python interpreter. So this is an example of using hybrid approach. So in the next class, we will see more details. With this, I'm going to close the session. Thank you for watching.